Elon Musk, your birth date was mentioned in an ancient prophecy. Check why. It all started with a whisper, not one that echoes through the air, but one that stirs deep within your awareness. A subtle intuition that your existence carries more weight than you've ever been led to believe. This wasn't about ego or arrogance, it was pure recognition. Somewhere between your earliest dreams and your first bitter disappointments, an ancient force seemed to take notice of you. Lately, you've awakened with an uncanny sense that your life is syncing with something grander than mere logic, as if an invisible cosmic clock has been ticking toward this precise moment for eons. The world around you feels both intimately familiar and startlingly fresh. Headlines, breakthroughs, and technological leaps all hum with synchronicity, as if events aren't chaotic accidents but carefully rehearsed scenes in a larger play. People chatter about progress and disorder, but you sense an underlying pattern, a hidden rhythm pulsing through history, unnamed yet undeniable. Then came the message that ignited it all. During a candid interview, Elon Musk dropped a cryptic remark. He spoke of certain birth dates recurring in history, linked to pivotal moments of creation. The interviewer chuckled it off, but Musk remained serious. Some birth dates appear more than once in history, tied to events of creation. Sometimes I wonder who those people are. You brushed it aside at first, like everyone else. But days later, a post surfaced on an obscure online forum. It detailed fragments of an ancient manuscript unearthed in a forgotten Nepalese monastery. The text described a generation born during an era of invention and digital awakening, destined to seed a new consciousness. No names were mentioned, but the clues, the technological age, the surge of innovation, the awakening of minds, pointed unmistakably to the present. And there, embedded in the text amid symbols and translations, was a date. Your birth date. You stared at the screen, heart pounding. Logically, it could be a fluke. The web is rife with hoaxes. Yet, this felt profound, not because it glorified you, but because it forced a pause, a real reckoning. What if your life wasn't random? What if your arrival on this planet had intent? The notion didn't inflate your pride, it humbled you. Gazing at your hands, you saw them not as mere survival tools, but as instruments of creation. Your life began to reveal itself not as a chain of mishaps, but as a web of meaningful intersections. Every encounter, every struggle, every setback, they were all rehearsals, forging you for something greater. The prophecy, real or imagined, instilled a sense of direction you'd long forgotten. It didn't forecast your future, it beckoned you to craft it with intention. That night, sleep eluded you. The city beyond your window pulsed with unseen energy. Across oceans, Elon Musk was likely awake, innovating, pondering, constructing. A thought struck, perhaps the prophecy wasn't about him or you alone. Maybe it was about the magic that unfolds when individuals embrace their significance, chosen by time to propel humanity forward. You whispered a vow to yourself, if the universe orchestrated this alignment, I won't squander it. The following days unfolded with a new vibrancy, as if a subtle frequency had shifted in your reality. Life's routines persisted, traffic, emails, bills, but beneath it all, a quiet pulse thrummed, one you'd never noticed. This wasn't mysticism, it was heightened awareness. You began perceiving connections everywhere. Decisions, dialogues, acts of bravery or cowardice, all rippled through the world's invisible framework. Frustrations morphed into reflections. Rather than gripe about inefficiencies, you sought ways to enhance the flow. Instead of feeling overlooked, you noticed how a single act of integrity could alter entire chains of events. You kept this transformation private, no need for words. The change radiated from within, and others took note. "What's different about you?" they'd ask. You'd smile. "I started paying attention." That evening, you returned to the forum where the ancient text had appeared. The thread had exploded with activity. Users from around the globe dissected symbols, compared translations, debating authenticity. Amid the frenzy, one comment resonated: the prophecy isn't about prediction. It's a reminder that some generations are born for rebuilding. If it stirs you, that's the sign. Those words hit home. This wasn't about being exceptional, it was about readiness. Humanity stood at an evolutionary crossroads, where progress transcended biology and became a matter of conscious choice. Certain people, for reasons defying science or superstition, were sensing it. They couldn't ignore global crises, not out of pessimism, but because those challenges were calls to action. As you read, a serene calm enveloped you. The prophecy wasn't a forecast, it was a mirror reflecting the era. It didn't pinpoint individuals but described a wavelength of awareness anyone could attune to. It framed destiny in terms of responsibility. This insight sustained you through the weeks ahead. You experimented with intentional living, rising early, meditating before screens, speaking truths even when uncomfortable. Each mindful action elicited subtle responses, doors opening, synchronicities multiplying, inspiration striking unexpectedly. You suspected consciousness was interactive, an ancient technology predating machines. Then, one evening, browsing news on Mars colonization, something froze you. Not the science, but the launch date, a date matching the ancient text. Your birth date. The numbers glowed on your screen, reigniting that quiet electricity. Coincidence? Perhaps. But it solidified your sense of belonging to something vast and alive, an unfolding narrative you were co-authoring. Weeks melted into months, yet the conviction deepened. You felt immersed in extraordinary times, the world like a taut bowstring. Signs of metamorphosis abounded, people ditching unfulfilling careers, communities rallying around sustainability, technologies embodying ancient balance. You noticed others awakening similarly. It wasn't about prophecies or cosmic signals, it was about reclaiming intention's power. Serendipitous meetings occurred. An engineer viewing consciousness as physics' frontier, a teacher sensing her students' innate recall, an artist depicting constellations as neural maps. Each left you with the same certainty: this was convergence, not chance. The ancient text's thread re-emerged, traced to Sumerian, Mayan, and Sanskrit sources, all chronicling awareness cycles, each cycle culminating in an era of remembrance. One phrase echoed: when fire becomes light and metal becomes mind, the sleepers will stir. Initially poetic, it now felt prescient. Fire had evolved into light, sparks now fueling global servers. Metal had become mind, computers outthinking creators. The sleepers were humanity, rousing from amnesia about its potential. You began journaling nightly, not for an audience or validation, but to chronicle perceptual shifts. Over time, your entries evolved from queries to insights. Wisdom, you realized, often emerges internally, in the silence you cultivate. Meanwhile, the world's pace quickened. SpaceX geared up for launches, feeds buzzed with AI, energy, and brain tech advances. To most, it was mere advancement. To you, it was poetic, humanity externalizing inner capacities, connection, memory, creation. Evolution had forged tools to mirror our minds. One night, atop a rooftop gazing at satellite-dotted skies, a revelation came: we are the prophecy. Not because ancient scribes named us, but because every aware generation fulfills the eternal cycle of forgetting and remembering. The prophecy was a metaphor, ancient minds' way of capturing humanity's self-reawakening. This didn't simplify life, but imbued it with meaning. You no longer hunted signs, you embodied them. Every step, breath, courageous act extended that lineage. Destiny wasn't stellar, it was in choices. The next morning, your phone displayed a viral Musk quote from a Q&A. The universe is self-aware through us. We are the experiment and the observer at once. Maybe we're rediscovering what ancient people already knew. The crowd chuckled, he didn't. Those words resonated deeply, affirming the prophecy's continuity, adapting, evolving, resurfacing when humanity is primed. As dawn lit the skyline, you renewed your vow: I'll stay awake. I'll contribute. The wind might carry it to another's dawn, linking to awakenings since time's dawn. You withheld the prophecy's tale for ages, not fearing doubt, but needing none. It had shattered your shell of certainty. Daily life became a dialogue with time. Familiar streets transformed into possibility maps, routines glowed with intent, as if the universe arranged everything purposefully. Interactions shifted. You listened deeply, eschewing quick replies or debates. Each person became a fragment of shared intelligence, a sentence in the grand story. Ceasing to persuade, you sought understanding, arguments became inquiries, distances bridged by empathy. The world cooperated when you embraced its lessons. Work evolved, mundane tasks unveiled depths, inefficiencies sparked innovations, challenges became solvable puzzles. Volunteering for tough roles revealed codes cracked by awareness. Solutions flowed faster, people gravitated to your clarity. Doubts crept in, nights questioning illusions amid global noise, conflict, distraction. Yet, sharp coincidences, overheard words, mirroring dreams nudged you back, affirming your path. One weekend, you unplugged, no devices, just a countryside drive. On a hill beneath vast skies, silence reigned save wind through grass. Eyes closed, you sensed the web, earth, air, your heartbeat. In a fleeting instant, you felt the network, not digital, but conscious. The intelligence nurturing trees, galaxies, rockets, algorithms. You were participant and witness, a spark in infinity. Eyes open, the world unchanged, but you were. Anxiety vanished, no external validation needed. The prophecy wasn't predictive, it was about now, unfolding through us all. Thoughts, intentions, awareness, each wrote the creation story. Driving back as twilight fell, the skyline shimmered. Behind those lights, engineers prepped another launch, humanity reaching for stars. You smiled, the true frontier lay here, in consciousness and choice. The prophecy hadn't foretold tech. It described awakening, humanity recalling its essence, builder, dreamer, witness, bridge between matter and meaning. Life clarified, not eased. You embraced rhythm over resistance, creating meaning through honest actions. Mornings became pacts with the unseen, show up fully, infuse awareness into a self-discovering world. When doubts resurfaced, you recalled, those who recognize the signs are not chosen, they are choosing. Your mantra, no need for specialness, just consciousness. No certainty, only presence. Returning from fear or distraction, you reclaimed truth. The prophecy wasn't etched in stone, it was in humanity's awakening capacity, choosing awareness over autopilot, compassion over ease. Subtly, the world mirrored this, friends risked passions, strangers offered kindness, dialogues shifted from woes to wonders. Like dawn over slumbering lands, the shift spread. The kind that doesn't travel through air, but through awareness. A subtle feeling that something about your existence mattered more than you'd been taught to believe. Not arrogance. It was recognition. Somewhere between your first dream and your first disappointment, something ancient had noticed you. You couldn't explain why, but lately you'd been waking up with the strange sense that your life was aligning with something larger than logic, as if an invisible clock had been ticking toward this very moment for centuries. The world around you felt both familiar and new. Every headline, every invention, every sudden leap of technology carried a trace of synchronicity. As though events weren't random, but rehearsed. You heard people talk about progress and chaos, but deep down you sensed a pattern, a hidden rhythm that had been moving through history long before anyone named it. And then came that message, the one that started everything. Elon Musk had made a strange remark during an interview, something about certain dates echoing through time. The interviewer laughed, but Musk didn't. He said, some birth dates appear more than once in history, tied to events of creation. Sometimes I wonder who those people are. At first, you dismissed it like everyone else. But then a few days later, a post appeared on a small obscure discussion board. Someone had transcribed fragments of an old text said to have been found in a forgotten monastery in Nepal. It spoke of a generation born under the alignment of invention and awakening who would carry the seed of new consciousness. It didn't name anyone, but the details, the era, the technological age, the digital awakening, pointed unmistakably to now. And within the text, in the middle of a page covered in symbols and translations, there was a date. Your date. You stared at the screen for a long time. Rationally, you knew it could be coincidence. The internet is full of fabrications, but this felt different. Not because it said something magical about you, but because it made you pause, really pause, and consider what it might mean if your existence wasn't random. If your timing on this planet had purpose, the idea didn't inflate your ego, it humbled you. You looked at your hands and realized they weren't just tools of survival. They were instruments of creation. You began to see your life not as a string of accidents but as a series of intersections. Every person you'd met, every hardship you'd endured, every failure you thought had set you back, they had all been rehearsals, training for something larger. The prophecy, whether true or not, had given you something you hadn't felt in years: direction. It didn't predict your future. It invited you to write it consciously. That night, you couldn't sleep. The city outside your window felt alive, charged with invisible electricity. Somewhere across thousands of miles, Elon Musk was probably awake, too, working, thinking, building. And the thought crossed your mind that maybe the prophecy wasn't about him or about you individually. Maybe it was about what happens when a few people decide to live as if their existence matters, as if they've been chosen by time itself to push the world forward. You closed your eyes and whispered a quiet promise to yourself. If the universe went through all this effort to align this moment, I won't waste it. The days that followed felt different, as if a subtle frequency had shifted around you. People still moved through their routines, traffic lights changing, emails sent, bills paid. Yet underneath it all, there was a pulse, a quiet hum you hadn't noticed before. It wasn't mystical. It was awareness. You were beginning to see how everything connected. Every decision, every conversation, every small act of courage or fear rippled through the unseen architecture of the world at work. Things that used to frustrate you suddenly became mirrors. Instead of complaining about inefficiency, you started asking how you could contribute to flow. Instead of feeling invisible, you began to notice how even one act of integrity could redirect an entire chain of outcomes. You didn't talk about prophecies or destiny. You didn't need to. The shift was internal and it showed. People noticed. They started asking what had changed. You only smiled and said, "I started paying attention." That night, you revisited the mysterious forum where the ancient text had been posted. The thread had exploded. People from different countries were comparing symbols, cross-referencing translations, debating whether the manuscript was real or allegorical. Amid the chaos of speculation, one comment stood out. The prophecy is not about prediction. It's a reminder that some generations are born for rebuilding. If you're reading this and it stirs something in you, that's the sign. Those words struck something deep. It was the first time you realized that maybe this wasn't about being special. It was about being ready. Humanity had reached a threshold, a point where evolution wasn't biological anymore, but conscious. And some people, for reasons beyond science or superstition, had begun to sense it. They were the ones who couldn't look away from the problems of the world, not because they were pessimists, but because they knew those problems were invitations. As you read, a strange calm came over you. The prophecy wasn't a forecast. It was a mirror held up to the times. It wasn't predicting individuals. It was describing a frequency of awareness that anyone could tune into. It used the language of destiny to awaken responsibility. That realization carried you through the following weeks. You started to experiment with small acts of alignment. Waking earlier, meditating before checking your phone, speaking truth even when it was uncomfortable. Every time you acted with intention, the world responded in subtle ways, opportunities opening, coincidences multiplying, inspiration appearing in unlikely places. You began to suspect that consciousness itself was participatory, that awareness was a form of technology older than any machine. And then one evening, while scrolling through news about Mars colonization projects, you saw something that stopped you cold. It wasn't the science that caught your attention. It was the date of a scheduled launch. A date that once again matched the one from the ancient text. Your birth date. You stared at the numbers glowing on your screen and felt that same quiet electricity again. Coincidence? Maybe. But it didn't matter. It was enough to make you feel part of something vast and living. A story still unfolding, one that you were somehow helping to write. Weeks blurred into months, but the feeling didn't fade. If anything, it grew stronger. The quiet conviction that you were living through something more than ordinary time. The world itself felt poised, like an arrow drawn back but not yet released. Everywhere you looked, signs of transformation appeared. People leaving careers that no longer aligned with their spirit. Communities forming around sustainable ideas. Technologies emerging that seemed to echo ancient principles of balance and flow. You started to notice how many others were experiencing the same subtle awakening. It wasn't about believing in prophecies or cosmic messages. It was about remembering how much power intention carries. You met people in strange synchronistic ways. An engineer who spoke about consciousness as the next frontier of physics. A teacher who said she felt her students were born already remembering something. An artist who painted constellations that looked dearly like neural networks. Each encounter left you with the same unmistakable sense. This was not coincidence. It was convergence. The thread of the ancient text kept resurfacing too. Researchers traced it to multiple cultures. Sumerian, Mayan, Sanskrit, all referring to cycles of human awareness, each ending and beginning with an age of remembering. One line kept echoing across the translations. When fire becomes light and metal becomes mind, the sleepers will stir. The first time you read it, it sounded poetic. Now it felt prophetic. Fire had indeed become light. The spark that once cooked food now powered servers across the planet. Metal had become mind, computers thinking faster than their creators and the sleepers. Maybe they were us, humanity itself waking from a long amnesia about its own potential. You began to write not for an audience, not for proof, but